Okay, it's now 7:30 and we have a quorum. So I will count down from 10, Sarah, and then we'll be ready to go live. So everyone ready? So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We should now be live. Chair Gooding.
Thank you. We will call to order the June 10th, 2021 meeting of the Brisbane Planning Commission. This virtual meeting is compliant with the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20 issued on March 17, 2020, allowing for deviation of teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. Consistent with the order, this virtual meeting provides a safe environment for staff, planning commissioners, and the public while allowing for public participation. The Planning Commission meeting is being broadcast on Comcast Channel 27 and the city's YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/BrisbaneCA. The agenda materials may be viewed online at www.brisbaneca.org/meetings. All written comments submitted in advance of the meeting have already been provided to the Commission. For those who did not provide written comments, a call-in telephone number was provided on the agenda, which can be viewed online at www.brisbaneca.org/meetings. The phone number and instructions will also be provided during the meeting. Participants in the Zoom webinar may make their comments through Zoom. Please note that Zoom participants will only be able to address the Commission verbally. I will announce time limits for public comment during the particular item. Staff, may we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Funka.
Yes.
Commissioner Gomez.
Here. You guys hearing me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry, having some sync problems.
Here.
Commissioner Patel.
Here.
Commissioner Sayasan.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
I make a motion.
Any second?
I'll second.
We have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Funka.
Aye.
Commissioner Gomez.
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding.
Aye.
Commissioner Patel.
Aye.
Commissioner Sayasan.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries with 5 ayes. Now regarding the consent calendar, are there any members of the public or any commissioners who would like to remove any item from the consent calendar? Staff will post a text and call number on the screen, which they have just done. Any Zoom participants who want to pull an item from the consent calendar, please raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button or by pressing *9 on your phone if you have called in. Staff will start a timer for 30 seconds for members of the public to ask to pull any item from the consent calendar. While we're waiting for that, are there any commissioners who would like to remove any item from the consent calendar?
Okay, 30 seconds has passed. We don't have any hands raised or texts, I'm assuming.
Right. In that event, may I have a motion, please, to adopt the consent calendar as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Any seconds?
Second.
Voice vote, please.
Commissioner Funka. Was that a yes? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Commissioner Gomez.
Yes, aye.
Commissioner Gooding.
Aye.
Commissioner Patel.
Aye.
Commissioner Sayasan.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries with 5 ayes. The consent calendar is adopted. The oral comments that are not on the agenda can be called in by calling the teleconference number in the next 1 minute or made by participants in a Zoom seminar or webinar, excuse me. Staff will display the call-in number on the screen, and any Zoom meeting participants should raise their hand to indicate to staff that they would like to address the commission on any items not on the agenda. Callers may press *9 to raise their hand. Staff, please set a timer for a moment. While we're waiting for that, staff, do we have any written items to acknowledge at this time?
I have none.
Very good.
Okay, 1 minute has passed and I don't see any hands raised and I don't believe we've got any texts and no calls.
Very good, thank you. And I believe there is no old business, is that correct?
Correct.
All righty. In that case, new business. We have a new item on the agenda, which is a public hearing on, I believe it's 130 Sierra Point, is that correct?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. As introduced, this agenda item is for a grading review to allow a new 3,032 square foot home with an attached 453 square foot garage on Sierra Point Road. Grading review is required because more than 50 cubic yards of soil will be exported. 457 is proposed, and this request also includes the removal of 6 mature trees. The 5,000 square foot site is located in the R1 residential zoning district and has a slope of 33%. It is currently developed with a 900 square foot home in the northwest or upper right corner of the lot and a 415 square foot garage on the lower left of the site plan. The garage is considered non-conforming due to its 0-foot side setback, and there is no on or off street parking at the site. Clouded in the photo is a planter box within the public right-of-way. There are 6 mature trees located on the property and identified by stars in the graphic, one of which is dead, shown in red. A 7th tree, shown in gold, is a juvenile tree. None of the trees are protected species per Brisbane Municipal Code, section 12.12.040. Access is from Sierra Point with a stairway adjacent to the garage leading from the street up to the home. The Planning Commission previously considered applications at the subject property. They were use permit UP-1-20 and grading review EX-1-20, and the scope of the previous applications included grading review for approximately 150 cubic yards of soil cut and export to accommodate a new single-family dwelling, remove 6 mature trees, and a request to modify the parking regulations to allow the existing 2-car garage with non-conforming interior dimensions to be retained. The Commission denied the applications at the December 3rd, 2020 special meeting. The resolution with findings denying the application is attached to the staff report. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing home and detached garage and build a new 3-story single-family home with a new attached garage below. The proposal would comply with applicable development standards of the R1 zoning district, including floor area, lot coverage, setbacks, building height, and parking. The project is subject to infrastructure improvement requirements per Brisbane Municipal Code Chapter 17.01 and must incorporate street widening and sidewalk installation within the property frontage. Construction details for the improvements in the public right-of-way will be subject to approval by the city engineer at building permit. The applicant's grading plan proposes excavation of 595 cubic yards of soil and 120 cubic yards of soil fill, with 475 cubic yards of soil cut to be exported from the site. The proposed plan would accommodate 4 off-street parking spaces with 2 covered spaces inside the new garage and 2 new off-street parking spaces in the driveway. The applicant's plans also call for the removal of all on-site trees, including 6 mature trees and 1 juvenile, due to their proximity to the proposed structure or location within the footprint of the structure. Again, none of the trees are protected species as defined by the Brisbane Municipal Code. The city engineer has reviewed the proposed grading and site plans and will require a grading permit with full geotechnical reports and engineered grading plans to be submitted prior to building permit issuance, in addition to the infrastructure improvements. The building department and North County Fire Authority have also reviewed the proposed plans and have imposed conditions of approval to be satisfied at building permit. They are contained within the draft resolution. To grant the grading permit, the commission has 4 topics outlined under the guidelines for Planning Commission review of grading permits adopted in 2003. First, is the proposed grading minimized and designed to fit comfortably with the natural topography? As visible in the north and south elevations, the home is terraced to fit with the natural topography, and the bulk of the grading is located within the footprint of the proposed home, which conforms to the development standards of the R1 residential zoning district. The project is required to provide a total of 4 parking spaces, 2 of which must be covered, and 475 cubic yards of soil cut and export from the site is the minimum necessary to accommodate both the new home and attached code-compliant garage in accordance with the parking requirements of the Brisbane Municipal Code, Chapter 17.34. Second, are large retaining walls avoided? The proposed grading would result in 1 exposed retaining wall within a required setback along the front lot line, approximately 5 feet 1 inch in height, and a second sloping retaining wall outside the setback areas, approximately 9 feet 6 inches tall at its highest point. Large exposed retaining walls are otherwise avoided or not visible from the street. Conditions of approval would require the visual impact of any walls greater than 6 feet tall or subsequently identified to be greater than 6 feet tall after the project undergoes grading permit review by the city engineer to be minimized with vegetative screening or application of varying finish materials or textures to break up the massing of the walls at the applicant's option. The third guideline does not apply as the project is not within the San Bruno Habitat Conservation Plan. And lastly, does grading conserve groups of 3 or more mature trees? As stated previously, the proposal would remove a total of 6 mature trees and a 7th juvenile tree. The red X's are the mature trees to be removed, and the black X is the juvenile tree. Tree removal regulations per Brisbane Municipal Code Chapter 12.12 requires that the removal of 3 or more mature trees shall be based on at least 1 finding, but 3 can be made for this project. The pine located at the top right of the plan is dead. The remaining mature trees, highlighted in yellow, would either be in close proximity to the proposed structure or unreasonably interfere with the economic or other enjoyment of the property. The green box indicates the buildable area of the property that could be developed under the development standards for the R1 residential district. Of note, the existing home is quite small and located in the corner of the lot. This allowed the trees to grow in the middle or buildable area allowed under the zone's development regulations. For reference, here's a side-by-side of the existing and proposed home. Left is existing, right is proposed, and you can see how 5 of the 6 trees are both within the green buildable area and in close proximity to the proposed home. The only tree that is not is the dead pine. Standard conditions of approval per Brisbane Municipal Code Section 12.12.050 include a replacement on a 1-to-1 basis, and the species and location shall be approved by the director. A recommended condition of approval would require 7 replacement trees. This would include a replacement for the juvenile tree, even though neither a permit nor a replacement of a juvenile tree is required by the Brisbane Municipal Code. The replacement trees must be low water, non-invasive, native preferred, and match the size of the existing trees at maturity, subject to the director's approval. The green stars on the landscaping plan show that 7 replacement trees could be accommodated. This concludes staff presentation with a recommendation of approval of grading permit EX-1-21 by adoption of the attached resolution. Any questions at this time?
So I'm just take a sort of a roll call of the commissioners and ask each one if they have any questions of staff. Commissioner Funke, do you have any questions of staff at this time?
I think it's fine. I was curious, the 9-foot wall, if you could just identify that, maybe go back, Jeremiah, to the picture. I was just curious which one that was. Is that the one that's closest to the street, or is it the sloping wall?
Yeah, let me bring that up for you. It's a driveway wall that's on the southern side. I'll bring up the rendering where you can see it.
Okay, and then I was wondering how it was going to meet the requirement. Do they plan to break it up with vegetation or structurally? Is that the one that's half wood and half concrete?
No, so the wall that's the 9 foot is the triangular wall on the left of the top picture
Okay.
and the bottom picture. So it slopes upwards. At building permit, we would require either be similar to the retaining wall on the right side where it's two different types of materials and textures, or landscaping could be another way to screen it. So there's no section greater than 6 foot tall.
I see. So it would actually look different than it looks in this rendering. They would be required to do something else, right?
Yes, for any part of that wall that's over 6 foot. So just a small part of that triangular area would need to be a little different.
Okay. All right. That's and I had one question that's not really related to the project, and I can find it somewhere else if you want me to. The protected tree species, do you know them by heart?
They are the coast live oak, and then I think I'm out.
The bay laurel,
Bay laurel.
Okay.
and now I'm out.
Let me see if I can.
We'll look up the third.
Yeah.
I promise
Okay.
we do know them.
Okay. Bay and laurel. Okay, that's cool. I was just curious, but that's all the questions I had.
Thank you. Commissioner Gomez, any questions of staff?
Unmuting my double mute. No, not at this particular moment. Thank you.
Okie doke. I'll wait my turn at the end. Commissioner Patel, any questions?
I was just wondering if you could tell us if you know what the species are currently of the trees that are being removed.
Yes, they're on the grading plan. Let me take a quick
Yeah.
gander at that.
Oh, I can pull it up too. I should have read that.
And while we're doing that, so it is California bay, excuse me, not bay laurel, coast live oak, and California buckeye. Those are the species that are protected, or those are the trees that are protected by their species if they are of mature size.
California buckeye. Never heard of it.
And the existing trees, we have two walnuts, two podocarpus, one cedar, that's the juvenile tree, and then the pine tree. And there's a redwood as well.
My question just is if you're going to put 4 trees in the front, can they all be that height that they would get in the current, like where they are currently?
There's some discretion on when looking at replacement trees in relation to the buildable area as well. So these trees were allowed in part to get large because the home's sort of tucked away. So there's a little discretion and on the replacement trees, and bunching the 4 together, right? You wouldn't want 4 massive trees all clumped together, but there could be 4 trees down there. And in the rear yard, there's room for large trees as well.
It seems as though if you're going to do a 1-to-1 replacement, that seems like, I don't know. I mean, it just seems to me like from when I grow things in my backyard, that might be too many trees in a small area unless they're going to be smaller trees. Is that what you're saying, that you guys are going to allow for not a 1-to-1 replacement, and so that of a tree that would grow a similar size, it would be a tree that would have to grow a smaller size?
Yeah, the discretion in the front area would likely be smaller trees that are more suitable in that kind of close proximity to others.
So then does that satisfy the code? Does it in terms of replacing it 1-to-1 for a tree that will grow to a similar size?
The code is a 1-to-1 replacement, and the discretion is with the director on size at maturity and species.
Oh, okay. That's all right. I was just wondering about that.
Thank you. Commissioner Sayasan, any questions of staff?
No question.
I just a couple of questions. One of them was kind of dovetailing with Commissioner Patel's, which is the size of the trees. And my other question is really related. And Jeremiah, if you could perhaps go back to the rendering that had the overhead shot of the lots with the locations of the trees.
So you want a
That one, yeah, perfect.
this one. This is existing.
Right. And so looking at the, is north the right side of this diagram?
North is the right property line, correct?
Yeah. So on the north side of this property line, there are 3 trees there, including the juvenile tree. Are those, what is the rationale for removing those if they are not actually if they're not actually encroaching on the structure itself?
The findings are if they are they would be inside the structure footprint or within close proximity to a structure. So if
The grading would probably impact the trees based on how close they are to the new foundation.
Yeah, and if you see the 2 side by side, they are that's a 7-foot setback from the property line to the building at that point. And you can see the trees are pretty much right next to it. It looks like the juvenile is within that little projection, but they are very close to the structure.
Okay.
And as my colleague pointed out, yes, the grading would likely impact the root systems there.
And can you describe what remaining expert or professional reports would be required by the city prior to issuing the permits? I think you ran through them, but I didn't quite get them.
There would be the geotechnical reports, soils report, and then all the structural and engineering for the stability of the retaining walls.
And is there anybody else besides the city engineer that reviews those geotechnical reports before the permit gets issued?
The building division actually took a look at the previous soils report as part of the review of this application. But it is primarily the city engineer.
Okay, that's all the questions I have of staff. Thank you.
Could I ask, just out of curiosity, the tree replacement agreement, how is that monitored or enforced? You know, if like 3 or 4 years from now the trees are removed and something else is put there or something. I just out of curiosity, it doesn't relate to this project, but how is that? Does the city periodically go around and make sure that the agreements are abided by?
There's no kind of tree spot check. It's sort of like any other code enforcement matter. It would be complaint driven. But these trees would be, protected under this permit. So any removal would need a tree removal permit in the future.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, beyond final inspection, prior to giving a certificate of occupancy, staff does not go out for follow-up checks. You don't have the resources
So
for
it's
that.
complaint driven. That's it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, we hear that often. It's a complaint-driven enforcement process because there isn't really a process for, policing this stuff. I did think of one more question, which is back in the rendering of the prospective project. Is there anything in the landscaping plan other than the trees? That is there any green, sod, shrubbery like that to make the hillside perhaps more stable or perhaps less erosive?
So what was provided is a conceptual landscape plan, and a final landscape plan was a landscape maintenance agreement would be required prior to building permit final. And that would be, we would look at irrigated landscapes and other landscaping. The diagram did have some small kind of shrubs indicated there in the front yard area, but there are no definitive plant species on the conceptual landscape plan.
Okay, so that is conceptual at this time, and some sort of landscaping plan would be required to obtain the final permit.
Correct. It's a requirement prior to issuance of the building permit in case there's some change. Or sorry, prior to final of the building permit in case there's some changes along the way. But it includes a landscape maintenance agreement signed by the property owner and recorded with the city.
And who within the city has the sign-off authority to approve a landscape maintenance plan?
The directors approves the plan, and the planning department will do the final inspection to make sure it conforms with the approved plan.
Okay, thank you. I think it's time, well, do we have any people in the waiting room requesting a public hearing of any kind?
You have to open the public hearing, and the applicant is here also.
I just have one question before we move on really
Sure.
quickly. So I'm looking at, I was looking at section 12.12, and then I was looking at subdivision B, and I was just going to ask the staff, it says the foregoing conditions are considered minimal, where a large protected tree is removed. So there's no protected trees here. But I was just wondering, because I read it, if you guys could answer this question. Or where the site has or will be largely denuded of landscaping, the director may require replanting of more than 1-to-1 basis and or require a large tree replacement size. When you guys are doing a consideration for a plan, how does that section sort of impact your analysis? Do you guys just look at how much available land there is, and I guess when do you trigger that? It just seems very open-ended. Like,
What section were you looking at again, Mr. Patel?
let me just pull it up again real quick.
Was it 1212?
1 second, sorry.
12-12-050 B 4B.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So these trees, they are considered protected because it's 3 or more trees at one time.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if this language is referring to a singular tree. But that's a singular large tree, protected tree, either by permit or species.
Sorry, Commissioner Patel, the question is how do we determine what the appropriate size and species of the 1-to-1
Right. So
trees are? Okay.
typically when we see these permits coming through, the baseline is, well, there's a 1-to-1 replacement. But then in the code, there's this sort of section that says that, well, that's a minimum consideration. And at some points, the director can require more than a 1-to-1 replacement, or require a larger tree replacement in size. And I'm just wondering, when you guys are doing your analysis, when does this get triggered? Because it just seems very discretionary. I just didn't know when it would get triggered.
It is discretionary. It kind of, how we touched on earlier, it's sort of based on how many replacement trees are required and the space that the trees can be located. So that's all determined. And as we kind of touched off earlier, is there enough room even for the 7s? So that's, as I said, it's the discretionary of kind of how much size and the number of trees, so that the minimal number of trees required, and if you can get additional trees in there or not.
Because the trees that are going to be planted on this particular property can't reach the same height as the trees that were originally on it, was it ever discussed whether or not there would be an off-site planting of a tree species that could get as large as the trees that are currently on the property? Is that also under step number 6? So that's under, sorry, I'm not being very clear. 12.12 subsection. 1 second.
B4
B,
or no?
it's like
Sorry,
B,
6.
Yeah, B6.
Under exceptions.
Yes,
Jeremiah.
Yes, I see that. We do offer in lieu, but that was not discussed for this project.
Typically, we try to promote relocation or replacement at the same location to the extent we can, as opposed to, you have the loss occurring in one part of town and the idea is on a particular neighborhood or street, and we try to promote that replacement if it's feasible within that same geographic area, as opposed to, relocating that benefit.
All right. Any other commissioner questions? In that case, we can open the public hearing at this time and ask the applicant if they would like to speak and address the commission.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good evening.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so yeah, I just try my best, try to, set back everything, so address all the concern of the neighbors and the commissioners. So hopefully I can get approved this time, because this change actually cost me, believe me, like at least 200 something thousand dollars just for this change, because all the drilling, we needed extra drilling pier, the higher retaining wall, more grading, and everything, structures, everything have to be changed. It's so difficult for me to go to this point. It takes 5 years, 6 years right now to this point, and then hopefully we can get this approved. Thank you.
Chair Gooding, can you have the applicant identify himself for the record, please?
Yes, Mr. Yu, can you identify yourself fully for us?
Yes, my name is Wilson. So you and the owner of this property.
Very good.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any new materials or new information that you want to bring forward at this time, Mr. Yu?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right. At this point, then, we can open the hearing to the general public and ask staff to, hang on.
Yes, we can take public comment
Yeah.
now.
Okay,
And we have a Michelle Salmon with her hand raised. So Michelle, I'm going to allow you to talk.
Commissioners and staff, thank you for a chance to make a couple of comments. First of all, I am very grateful to both the commission and to Mr. Yu for not accepting the original plans and for redesigning the plans to meet the code. And although it's still going to be a difficult transition for our street and there's a lot of soil that's going to be removed, I am very grateful that Mr. Yu has met the requirements from the code and will be building a much better, much safer house. And I personally and my family looks forward to welcoming them to our street. We're a very tight-knit street, and I'm looking for the construction to be over and for them to be neighbors. So I am very grateful to both the commission and to the applicant for making the changes that bring this into compliance. I did want to say a few words about the trees. And as all of you know, I am a diehard tree hugger. You know, I love trees. I think they're wonderful. In all honesty, at looking at the site and looking at the plans, I think 7 trees of the size that are currently on the property is too many. And I know that's an awkward thing to say, but there is not enough additional land to support 7 mature trees of the size that are currently there, and it be safe. They will grow large and they will be too close to the house. And so I think that we need to make some accommodation there to maybe have a few less trees, maybe 5. I don't know what the appropriate amount is, but 7 to me of the size that are currently on that lot are too many to fit safely with the size of the house. And I know this firsthand because I just went through having to get a tree permit on my own property to have a tree removed that was planted before we moved here. And it was a locust tree. And before we moved here, it wasn't even as tall as the house. And in the 15 years that we've lived here, it grew to be 3 times taller than the house and infested with ivy. And because I couldn't clear the tree. And, you know, it was obviously a tree that was planted in the wrong spot because it was planted between the 2 houses. So it was overhanging our house and the neighbor's house. And after I had made arrangements to have it removed at great expense, I found out my insurance company was going to cancel my insurance because the tree was too close to the house. And that's today's reality in California with our current wildfire situation. So I do not think that we should hold the applicant to the 7 mature trees of this current size on this application. I think that we need to make accommodations. Sometimes a 1-to-1 ratio isn't reasonable when you're considering that you're replacing a 900 square foot house with a 3,000 square foot house, and the remaining 5,000 square foot lot will not necessarily have enough room to host 7 mature trees, and certainly not a redwood tree. And you can look all over town for examples of where trees were planted that were too big for the site that they were planted on, such as the old community center in the center of town where they planted, 6 or 7 redwood trees, which are now huge, too huge. And so I hope that you'll make some consideration on that, especially since we don't have follow-up. I think that Rule's question about that was extremely point on. I've noted over the years, numerous variances and accommodations that were made that were never followed up on over time. So I think it's best not to set those expectations at the beginning, since we don't have an enforcement thing in place. And I'd rather the property owner design appropriate tree plantings and landscaping for the site, for the size of the house, and in consideration of the neighbors behind him and on the street. So yes, I do want replacement trees, but I think 7 is way too many. Commissioner Patel hit the nail on the head with saying that, that's too many. Maybe we can do, some kind of offset of tree planting elsewhere to meet that requirement, or maybe we just need to lessen that requirement for this application. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I think our commission does an amazing job under very tough circumstances. And Mr. Yu, I truly am sorry that you were led astray on your first, initially with your first application of what the requirements should have been. But I'm very grateful that you have changed those, and I know it was a great expense to you, but I think you'll be very happy on our street with the house that you're going to build. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak, staff?
I see no others with their hands raised.
All right.
Do you want to give a bit more time and warning before you close the public hearing, or are we going to close the public
Well,
hearing?
I think we need to set a timer for 30 seconds of warning to close the public hearing at this time.
I will start a timer now.
Great.
And I will display the call-in.
I see that Michelle has her hand raised again. I'm not sure if this is a new, oh, it went down.
Okay, so I've put the call-in number on the screen. There's also a text, and I've started a timer for 30 seconds for anyone else who wants to comment. Okay, 30 seconds has elapsed, and I don't see any new callers and no new raised hands.
All right, thank you very much. May I please have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move to close this public hearing.
Thank you. Any second?
Second.
All right. Voice vote, please.
Commissioner Funke,
Aye.
Commissioner Gomez,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding,
Aye.
Commissioner Patel,
Aye.
Commissioner Saison, Commissioner Saison,
Oh, you didn't hear me? I said aye.
Thank you. The motion to close the public hearing passes with 5 ayes. Our deliberation period has begun. So I'm going to call on the commissioners in turn to see if they have any comments to share with each other or staff. Commissioner Funka, any comments?
Yeah, I thought Michelle's comment was very on point. You know, I think that there's not much sense in strictly enforcing a one-to-one ratio if you know that 10 or 15 years from now, it's just the trees are going to be crowded out. I don't quite know who is qualified to make that judgment, but I think I would be completely fine with that sort of variance if I could be convinced that, yeah, you know, having a less than one-to-one ratio, it will improve the welfare of the trees that you do put in over the long term. So I'm completely fine with that. That's one comment there. And then I had a question about, let's say you do allow that. You say, okay, let's do 4 trees or 5 trees instead of the 7 that would be required under a strict one-to-one ratio. Has a city ever done that before? And where would you put them? I know you said, John, that you try and put them sort of in the same neighborhood so you get that benefit, but it hasn't been done before. And is there maybe an area where the city knows that there's sort of a deficit and where people could do these kind of offsets, you know, as a matter of routine, you know?
The cases that it's been done in that I'm aware of are placing them within public right of way or a park or something where the city will maintain it, as opposed to, you know, otherwise you have to find a willing property owner who's going to maintain that tree and take on that obligation. So that's the cases I'm aware of. There aren't a lot of them that I can think of 4 or 5 that come to mind probably in the years I've been around. So it can be done. I think there may be a question if you are going to go that route. I mean, the one tree theoretically, you know, the 7, I believe, Jeremiah, that 7th tree is not really required for replacement. Is that correct?
Correct. The juvenile tree does not actually require a replacement tree.
So we'd be talking about 6 max, or per the code anyway. That would be complying with the code requirement. So are you saying as a group, if they can't replace the 6 on site, that you would like the final 1 or 1 or 2 replaced off site? Is that where you're headed? It's fine.
Well, I have a sort of question that piggybacks off of Commissioner Funke's question, which is, I guess there's a debate as to, I mean, if you can replace the 7 trees, right? I mean, if you make them all like ultra dwarf trees, you could put 7 ultra dwarf trees on the property. The issue is that you're not going to be replacing them with the tree that's going to reach similar heights. You're not going to be replacing trees that get 20 feet. You're not going to be replacing 20-foot trees with 20-foot trees. That's just not going to happen. So that's why I was wondering, like, how you trigger the offsite version. That way you could put maybe 2 trees that are going to be the same size on the property, but you put 2 trees that are going to be the same size on a different property. I just didn't know how that was ever going to get triggered, because it doesn't seem like I mean, it seems impossible to put 7 really large trees on that property. So there's going to be some sort of replacement with either ultra dwarfs, or smaller trees, right? Is that how that would work? I mean, do you guys know what trees you guys are going to use to replace them yet? Or is that coming in a later stage?
No replacement species have been identified yet.
So I have a question that may help us figure out who, what, when. How much discretion does the planning department have once we, you know, act on this grading permit to not require a strict 1-to-1 replacement? Is there any discretion at all? I don't think there is, but
I think what Director Suki was advising was that you could require replacement of a certain number of the trees on site and then require an in lieu fee or payment to pay for off-site planting of the trees, so that technically you're still meeting that's allowed per the code. That's an exception. So it's exactly what Commissioner Patel was getting at.
Yeah.
The code says you have to replace 1-to-1. It says shall be replaced 1-to-1. So at this point, they shall replace 6 trees, is what I'm hearing.
Right, but it doesn't have to all be on site.
Right.
Okay.
And
those discussions take place between the planning department and the owner when it comes time for the landscape maintenance plan, correct?
Yes.
So John, so we don't have to make any decision. For example, you could decide with the applicant, oh, you could only replace 1 tree on site and 5 can be elsewhere.
We could, that would be kind of inconsistent with the goal of trying to maximize, we're trying to basically balance competing factors here, right? We want to create a, maximize the amount of on-site replacement in a manner that's safe and makes sense for the site. And then if that can't be achieved and you can't achieve 1-to-1, then there's alternatives of the in lieu fee payment or an off-site replacement, or options available to the applicant to meet the requirement if it can't be met on site.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just want to follow up. So if the applicant wanted to grow a really, really nice large tree, but his property will only fit that one really nice one, will you give that flexibility to him to then plant the remainder elsewhere? Just trying to feel that out.
That's conceivable. I mean, obviously we might be looking at some other smaller plantings on that site. And it's kind of hard to talk about a hypothetical design, because yes, hypothetically, yes, that's the case. I've never seen that where someone would put a tree that massive where they would want 1 tree as opposed to, 3 trees, but I guess it's conceivable. But, again, under the wording of the code, that would be the case. I mean, the discretion is still with the planning director and the city to approve the plan. So if we don't think the plan makes sense, that's driving, the applicant make a proposal, but the city ultimately approves it. So we'd have to be very comfortable that made sense to do something like that.
So my 2 cents worth on this is just as one of 5 people, and that we'll keep on going around the table if there further discussion is requested. But I don't think the question is who tweaks what when. I don't think that these 5 commissioners, we 5 commissioners, have the expertise or the obligation to decide, how many trees go where now, when it's the owner's property, it's his house he wants to enjoy, and it's planning staff that have the experience in deciding what trees tend to work best where. And that appears to be what the code generally contemplates.
Chairperson Gooding?
Yeah.
Can I come in?
Absolutely.
So this is how I'm thinking about it. And there's a simple phrase, right tree, the right place. And I'm pretty sure the city has the ability to put conditions in the respective, building permit, right? Once they actually get to that phase, to work with whomever the subject matter expertise would be, whether that's a certified arborist or a, whatever the certification is, right? To whether it's 2 or 3 or 4, whatever makes sense within the constraints, the space constraints of the property, I think is the right thing to do here. Right tree, right place. And then I'm a big advocate, and I've said this for years now, that we need more urban canopy in the right-of-way, the public right-of-way. The city just removed, and probably rightfully so, a bunch of eucalyptus trees right over here on San Bruno, right at San Bruno and Bayshore. I'm sure some of you have seen that. I'm sure some of the community has. So we just lost carbon sink there significantly, and additional shade cover. Now, we all know eucalyptus is a problem, right? But we should be looking at where can we strategically put more native tree species, or the right tree in the right place in the right of way, so that ultimately over time we're expanding our urban forestry, our urban canopy. We need that for many reasons, and I'll stop there.
Thank you, Napalo. Let's see, who have I missed? Commissioner, anybody left with any comments?
Say that makes a lot of sense what Commissioner Gomez said, and it's kind of what I was getting a little bit earlier, whether the city has kind of keeps a wish list for situations like this. As I was saying, yeah, we remove those. Let's just put that on our list for when other projects come through, to where we can use these as offsets. That's just to keep it as a running wish list, I think could be useful.
Thank you. All right, any other comments or questions? Going once, going twice? All right. I believe then it feels like we're done with our deliberations. May I have a motion on this item from anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I think we're making a motion to approve
EX 121.
Yes.
thank you, to approve grading review EX-1-21 for 130 Sierra Point Road. Are there any seconds?
Second.
Voice vote, please.
Commissioner Funka,
Aye.
Commissioner Gomez,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding,
Aye.
Commissioner Patel.
Aye.
Commissioner Saison.
Aye.
Okay, with 5 ayes, the motion carries. And I do want to join other folks, including Michelle, in thanking this applicant for his patience and in coming up with a plan and a project that clearly is very good and much better. So thank you very much. Let me read the appeal procedures, please. Anyone may appeal the action of the Planning Commission to the City Council. Except where specified otherwise, appeals shall be filed with the city clerk not later than 15 calendar days following the Planning Commission's decision. Exceptions to the 15-day filing period include the following. Appeals shall be filed with the city clerk within 6 calendar days of the Planning Commission's action for use permits and variances, and 10 calendar days for tentative maps and advertising sign applications. An application form and fee is required to make a formal appeal. For additional information, please contact the city clerk at 415-508-2110. All right, that concludes new business for the evening. Staff, are there any items initiated by staff?
Yes, I have a few this evening, Mr. Chair. First one is, we talked about this real briefly about that the city is moving toward hybrid meetings, which means, some on-site component or the option of participating remotely. I still don't quite understand the realm of what that means. But I mean, I know certain boards and commissions are moving forward with that, possibly as soon as their July meetings. I would be inclined not to be the guinea pig with a hybrid meeting. But it certainly, I am curious of the commission's sort of interest in proceeding along that sooner than later. I would look at probably later in July or maybe in August, starting to move forward with that. But just kind of want to get the commissioner's temperature on. I mean, I can't really explain how it would work, and I assume if it's a hybrid meeting, you would have the option of being present or not. But so I'm just curious if you don't have to. No one has to decide anything tonight, but think about it. If you have any thoughts about it you'd like to share with us this evening, it'd be a good time to put it on the table.
Any, let's see, let me go around the horn alphabetically. Commissioner Funga, any thoughts?
I must admit, I don't mind this format at all, and the hybrid is, it would feel a little bit strange maybe to have just 1 or 2 people there in the flesh. It could be fun sometimes, especially maybe if the Brisbane Inn opens up again for something afterwards. But in general, I'm easy. I'll go with whatever the flow is. I don't mind showing up in person. It's a 5-minute stroll. So I'm easy.
All right, Napolo.
Yeah, I fully support when we're safe to get back together at City Hall. Everything's opening up next week for the most part. So it'll be interesting just kind of how that unfolds, right? Across the state. A lot of conversations going on many fronts across the Bay Area. While there's a convenience here, right? And I'm in my basement because I'm under construction right now. You don't get as much. The digital chemistry, I don't think is as good as the in-person chemistry, and so I look forward to when we can actually have in-person meetings, but maybe I'm a dissenting opinion, and that's okay. I can be a dissenting opinion.
Commissioner Gooding, I'm sorry to step out of alphabetical order. I wonder if one of the important questions is whether everyone of the commissioners and the staff actually would be okay with in-person meetings without masks. That's one thing, the conversation we always have at work. It's like, if there's anyone who's uncomfortable, everyone has to wear a mask.
Yeah.
In that case, I think I would opt to be remote.
Right. Yeah.
That's just the question we could ask.
Yeah, you're right. That's one more issue. Sandip, any thoughts?
I'm good with either, but like John said, I said maybe we let someone else or some other commission or the city council
There'll
probably
be plenty. Yeah.
Figure out all the clarity around all those questions before we jump in.
Yeah, one of my favorite T-shirt ever is "Change is good, you first."
Yeah.
Pamal, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think live in-person meetings is good for the public. You know, it allows them to interact with us better, and I think that's important. But I also think it's important to be safe, and we have to see what any COVID protocols we still have to follow if folks aren't vaccinated, and things like that. I mean, I lean towards in-person meetings just for, I think it's better for the public. So, if we can do it safely, then I'm for it.
Thank you. So my 2 cents is I think like many of us, I'm dying for a return to normalcy in some fashion, but I think we have to curb our any feeling that we need to rush it. So I'm kind of on John's side that we don't have to be the first on the block to do it. And I suspect that we're going to wind up with a process where there's always going to be a digital component, because I think there are people, whether for accessibility or mobility issues, really value the ability to join us remotely. So I suspect that piece is kind of here to stay. So the hybrid process is probably, I think the end state will probably be some hybrid process anyway, however many of us are in the room. But so I think the consensus you got was nobody's in a hurry.
Yeah, I appreciate the input and the feedback. And, as soon as I have something that's more definitive to share about how the structure will be, I certainly will share that with you as soon as I can. So thank you.
Great. Any other items from staff?
Just one other item, just sort of a FYI, the council, their last meeting, they did approve a reimbursement agreement with the prospective developer of the quarry, which basically means that the quarry developer would be obligated to pay for all the costs of their permit processing, applications, EIRs, et cetera. That agreement is well on its way toward being executed, which is a pretty strong signal that developer is intending to move forward sooner than later. When that actually ends up translating into something the commission sees, that'll take some time. We may want to talk about possibly having an informational workshop at some point with the commission. I know they're going to do a presentation, I believe in July, tentatively to the council as to some of their preliminary thoughts on what they want to do with that property. So that'd be another opportunity for you to kind of view it. And so kind of give you a heads up on that. I think that's it. And Julie, I wanted you to take it from here, if you could.
Sure. Maybe I could first make another staff announcement about the Objective Standards project. Is that okay?
Sure.
So we've had a couple months since the workshop we did in April for the Objective Design and Development Standards. We're going to do a follow-up survey to kind of drill down a little bit more based on the feedback we got in the first survey. Similar kind of bent, we're trying to show some examples of different objective standards in built environments for people to react to. So that should be published by first week of July, that survey. and we'll promote it, of course, and hope we get robust participation like we did on the first one. And then we are also tentatively scheduled to do a council workshop July 15th on that project, and we will update you when that's confirmed. And then the other announcement is we do have a summer intern for 2021. I know we didn't in 2020. We're very excited to have Dara Fung join us for the summer. And I will go ahead and Dara, I'm going to allow you to talk. And you can just give yourself or introduce yourself to the commission.
Okay, hello, Commission. My name is Dara Fung, and I am the intern for the Community Development Department. I recently graduated from USC with degrees in real estate development and music, and I'm looking very forward to working with you. So thank you so much.
And she's going to be focusing on a lot of housing policy. So she'll be working on the Objective Standards project with me. She'll be helping Ken with the housing element project as it evolves over the coming months. And then anything else we throw her way. So you may see her at future meetings. Well, yeah, you'll definitely see her at future meetings and workshops as she assists on those projects and maybe some others.
Thank you and welcome, Dara. We look forward to hearing from you.
Welcome.
Any other staff initiated items? Any items initiated by the commission?
I was hoping I don't know how to go about doing this, but maybe we could work with staff on doing like an informational session on how we can follow up with what Napalo had said in terms of creating like a database of places where we could have off-site plantings. Because it seems like from the diagram that we saw today, a lot of the lots can be covered and a lot of trees can be removed as Brisbane modernizes their housing. So if we can identify where we can plant trees, or where homeowners that want to remodel can plant trees in Brisbane to sort of increase that urban canopy, that would be great. Or I don't even know how the staff, how we would go about doing any of that.
So
just if I could, the city does start an effort to track their assets, and street trees or trees in the right of way being an asset. It's been a while since I've talked to public works staff about that effort, but it's a good time to kind of loop back to that. And they have their own criteria in terms of street tree plantings and what they like to see in terms of street trees. And certainly we can share that information with the commission. Glad to do that.
Can I have just a couple comments here? What and I haven't seen it in years, many years. The Brisbane Climate Action Plan. That document is somewhere. I thought within that process there was a tree inventory or something along those lines that was performed, or am I mistaken? And maybe we take that as a follow-up.
Yeah, we'll look into that.
Yeah,
I think it was probably a requirement or a recommendation from the plan, not included within the plan. Is my recollection.
Yeah, to Commissioner Patel's comments there. So there are nonprofits that do that sort of thing. There might be opportunities there to noodle on this a bit more. And I'm not going to just try and throw work to another respective body, but I'm just wondering, does the open space and ecology, is it committee? Sorry, brain's tired right now. Could we partner on something like that? Would they be a stakeholder that we'd want to engage? I don't know. It just seems like this is an important topic and we should be collaborative.
That is the staff to OSEC is who I've had some conversations with about this topic over time. And I just want to circle back to them. I don't want to presume they haven't already kind of taken steps. So let's inventory and see what's being done currently and give you an update. And then if there is a perceived gap in terms of more work to be done, then we can revisit that. But I'd like to let's all understand what's going on currently before we start a different path.
Got it. Yep. Thank you.
I'm also seeing a hand raised by Michelle. I don't know if she has a comment she wants to make here, if you wanted to entertain that.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay. Michelle, go ahead.
I originally raised my hand because I wanted to make a final comment on 130 Sierra Point, but as you know, I do sit on the Open Space and Ecology Committee, and I don't want to speak for the whole committee necessarily, but first of all, the Climate Action Plan is a work in progress. It is constantly being worked and updated and massaged, so you should know that that is very high on our agenda. But we also have been working on basically a tree committee and doing some assessment of the urban canopy and some inventory work, and are working towards, it's not finalized by any means, but it's a work in progress, working towards having a kind of a more formal tree committee to address some of these issues with, maybe some expertise, outside expertise, et cetera. And so personally, speaking as Michelle Salmon, I would love for Open Space and Ecology Committee and the Planning Commission to work together on this, because I feel like it is an extremely important issue, and it is one that is near and dear to my heart and near and dear to the hearts of other OSEC members, all of us actually. So that is in the works. And if I can go ahead and make the comment I wanted to make about 130 Sierra Point, then I won't bother you again. But I would ask, because of the large scope of the project and the major events that are going to take place with the demolition and with the excavation, that the neighbors on our block be given sort of a, 72-hour warning when work is about to commence, so that we can prepare for it, because we do have a narrow street that's heavily trafficked, and those kind of activities are really intense. We lived through it when they built the house across the street from us. And I know that it would be really, the whole neighborhood would be grateful to have some warning in advance of the demolition and in advance of the excavation and some of the other major points that happen in the construction. So I don't know if the city has a way to do that, or if the owner would be willing to do that. But it'd be good to have a 1 week or a 72-hour notice of impending disturbance. So thank you so much. And I do really appreciate your work on it. I feel like it was really valuable. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I don't think this commission has any power to request or enforce anything above and beyond what's already in the code requirements. But it would be nice if the owner did that, but I don't think this commission has the jurisdiction to enforce any such things. But if he's still here, he hopefully heard that. Any other items initiated by the commission? No? Very good. Our next meeting, I believe, is June 24th. I should advise the staff, I will be out for the meeting of August 12th. I'll be away for that meeting, just FYI. If there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion?
Thank you. Any second?
Second.
Voice vote, please.
Commissioner Funke,
Aye.
Commissioner Gomez,
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding,
Aye.
Commissioner Patel,
Aye.
Commissioner Saison.
Aye.
We have 5 ayes. The hearing is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good evening.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, everybody.
Good night.